Hey guys, it's Nick, and it's preview time for your 2021-2022 Chicago Blackhawks. As this offseason, we saw a lot of changes to your Chicago Blackhawks. We saw the leaving of longtime assistant captain number 2, Duncan Keefe, being traded to the Edmonton Oilers. And then we saw potentially future Hall of Fame goaltender from the Vegas Golden Knights and Pittsburgh Penguins, Marc-Andre Fleury, get traded to your Chicago Blackhawks. And all of last year, the Blackhawks were without their captain, number 19, Jonathan Toews. And, well, he's back. So let's get into this season preview of the 2021-2022 Chicago Blackhawks. For starters, let's talk about the division, shall we? Last year we saw a whole new Central Division where we saw Tampa Bay, Carolina, Florida, Detroit, Columbus in the division, minus St. Louis, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Colorado. We're not in the division. And now we're back to what this Central Division has been for the past few years, plus one team since the NHL expanded to 32 teams with the Seattle Kraken in the league. So they had to move a Pacific Division team in, and that is the Arizona Coyotes. So the division looks like this: the Coyotes, Blackhawks, Avalanche, Stars, Wild, Predators, Blues, and Jets. So that's the 8 teams in this Central Division. Here's what I have to say. The Arizona Coyotes coming to the division, still, I've been saying it since they announced it about a year ago that the Coyotes will be moved into the Central Division. I disagreed with it back then, and I still disagree with it today. I don't like the idea of the Coyotes in the division. Yes, I get it. They were the odd team out because Vegas wanted to remain in the Pacific, and then you don't want to split up the Battle of Alberta, so they just brought in the Arizona Coyotes. Here's my issue with it. Travel. The Central Division already had the worst traveling in the league by mileage per team. Adding the Coyotes to it, it just tacks on more mileage than any other division. It's a joke. Maybe we see a potential the NHL consider moving them. I'm not getting into that part because I know they are going to be out of their stadium in Glendale next season. So who knows what happens there. Maybe we see what happens in the future with the Coyotes. But they're in the Central Division. Do I like it? No, because of the traveling between teams in the division. It tacks on way too much. So let's continue talking about the division, but here is my standing predictions for the 2021-22 season in the Central Division. As we know, Colorado is the favorite to win the division. They're one of the favorites to win the Stanley Cup, and I frankly do believe that they will sit back in first place in this division. Worst team in the division, it's going to be the newcomers, the Arizona Coyotes, to the division, because they basically blew up their entire team this past offseason. Darcy Kuemper went to Colorado because Colorado lost Philip Grubauer to free agency in Seattle. So the Coyotes have lost some key pieces. They lost Antti Ranta. They lost their captain and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's not really the same player as he was in the past, but still they lost their captain. The Coyotes just frankly showed that they are blowing it up to get better for the future by how many draft picks they acquired for this upcoming draft. So, frankly, seeing them in 8th place makes sense. Then at 7th place, I actually have the Nashville Predators because the team looks like they didn't do much to improve their roster. Yes, they acquired a few key players, but they didn't do much to fix their issues they do have. Their scoring problems. The team seems like they don't have what it takes to score a lot. And, well, that's why I have them at 7th. This division, I have to say, though, is the hardest division to predict in the NHL. Just because how tightly contested every team are, except for probably Arizona and probably Colorado, who are viewed as one of the best and one of the worst teams in the NHL. But 7th to 2nd is all up in air. So you could see potentially Nashville end up in 2nd. Who knows? But I frankly don't see it. I think they do end up in 7th. This is just a prediction, really, guys. Then we go to 6th place. In that, I predicted the Dallas Stars. The Stars, they did a lot. They did a lot to improve their roster from what they had last year. But the Stars are getting older. Their roster isn't getting younger at all. And frankly, I don't know what the health situation is with Seguin. He missed the majority of last year, if not all of last year. Ben Bishop as well. He missed all of last year and all of the playoffs that led them to the Stanley Cup final just 2 years ago. So the Stars are a question. They had a rough season last year, but they aren't getting younger. So I frankly have them sitting 6th place in this Central Division. Then at 5th place, this is where anything can happen. I have Minnesota at it, but they could easily be 2nd place in this division. Minnesota is a good team. The thing is, I don't know what we're going to get from Cam Talbot and Kaapo Kähkönen this year. They were good last year. Yes, they were. Especially with Calder winner Kirill Kaprizov, who was outstanding as a rookie last year. But I don't know what to say about their goaltending. Goaltending is a key part of this division, and frankly, would you rather have a situation where Cam Talbot and Kaapo Kähkönen versus a potential at 4th place of Marc-Andre Fleury and Kevin Lankinen? That's why I think, frankly, I have the Hawks higher in the division. So, yeah, as I led into it, at 4th place, I have your Chicago Blackhawks. They did a lot to improve the roster they had last year. They got Tyler Johnson. They got Seth Jones. They got Jake McCabe, and the key acquisition of the offseason was acquiring Marc-Andre Fleury. This team also is basically reacquiring their captain, number 19, Jonathan Toews, off the long-term IR, who could be a very key player for this roster. Last year, the Hawks looked lost without their captain. This year, it looks like Taser is going to be back in the lineup, and it could help the roster out with a big boost. So seeing Taze back could help the Hawks out from the face-off point, because they were horrible at it last year, at the PK, and at the power play. So I think Taze could help this roster out coming back from his illness he was dealing with all of last year. And then we also could have a healthy Kirby Dach, who, knocking on wood, has dealt with a lot of injuries since getting drafted by the Hawks in 2019. And he's projected to be back. So that's good to see. The Hawks are getting healthy. They're getting their key players that they were missing last year back in the lineup. And then they got some more players to help. So that's why I have the Hawks sitting 4th place. But easily they could be higher. They could be lower. Who knows? At 3rd place, I put the arch rival St. Louis Blues. They have some question marks. Does Tarasenko still want to remain there? He did request a trade to be traded out of St. Louis during the offseason. They did acquire Pavel Buchnevich from New York, and it's so weird to say it, Brandon Saad is in St. Louis. That's so weird. But frankly, they didn't do all that much to do improvement on their roster versus not doing much. Their roster is virtually the same with a few new members of their team. So 3rd place for St. Louis is understandable, but they could be lower. As I said, this division is tough to predict. Then I put Winnipeg at 2nd place in the Central Division. This is a team I've really noticed not getting looked at throughout the league as a potential team to have a stellar season. They still have Connor Hellebuck. They look like they could have a very solid roster. The team didn't do much to change it, but they have the pieces built on their roster to help them out. Winnipeg is a good team. They are. And they have a good defense. They have good forward depth. This team in Winnipeg is good, and that's why I honestly think putting them in 2nd place is a safe bet, because they are a good team. They have some experience. They have one of the best goalies in the league. And so I put them at 2nd. They are a very good hockey team. So this is my standing predictions. I have Colorado at 1st, Winnipeg at 2nd, St. Louis at 3rd, your Chicago Blackhawks at 4th, Minnesota at 5th, Dallas at 6th, Nashville at 7th, and Arizona at 8th in the division. This division is tight, it is good, and it's going to be a fun one to watch. So let's get into the rest of the preview, shall we? As I mentioned, the Blackhawks are getting back Jonathan Toews, Kirby Dach, back healthy. That's a key part for this team. But look at it. You have a good goalie tandem now in number 32, Kevin Lankinen, and number 29, Marc-Andre Fleury. Fleury is coming off a Vezina winning season just a year ago with the Vegas Golden Knights. And now he's on the Chicago Blackhawks. This is a thing. Kevin Lankinen last year, he was great in the first half of the year. Then it looked like he was falling apart. His place was just dwindling each and every game after the second half of the season. Now he gets a chance to learn from one of the best in the NHL in net and Marc-Andre Fleury. This could be a situation where we see Lankinen taking this, learning from Marc-Andre Fleury, and taking this for a long-term future for his career. This is a good situation to have. A great goaltender in Marc-Andre Fleury, a great number 2 goaltender in Kevin Lankinen. I'm liking what I see in net for the Hawks. Then let's talk about a few of the newcomers on the blue line, shall we? The Blackhawks did trade away Adam Boqvist, but they acquired Steph Jones. Was I angry with the trade when the trade happened? Yes, because the Hawks gave up on Adam Boqvist, a young defenseman who I honestly could see having his breakout season this year. But the Hawks are going for it. They're going to try and contend for the playoffs. So they went out and acquired Steph Jones. Yes, in the analytics world, he's shown as one of the worst defensemen in the league. But take that with a grain of salt. He did played for the Columbus Blue Jackets, who frankly were one of the worst teams in the NHL the last couple of seasons. Granted, they did make the playoffs 2 years ago, but last year they were just horrible. But now he has a chance to be in a system with the Chicago Blackhawks, who move the puck pretty well, and well, on the blue line, you can pair him with like Connor Murphy or Jake McCabe, 2 shutdown defensemen on the team. If you pair him with a shutdown guy, it could help him with being able to pinch up and play some offensive hockey from the blue line, which is a okay thing to see. As I mentioned, the Blackhawks acquired Jake McCabe, who they signed in free agency. And he played for the Buffalo Sabres, but frankly, he was one of the best defensemen for shutdown men and play in the NHL. He played on the Buffalo Sabres, who were historically bad last year, and he was still good. You put him with like Steph Jones, or if you want to have a shutdown D pairing, you put him with now longest tenured Blackhawk defenseman Connor Murphy on the blue line in like a PK setup. This is a good thing to have. You can set up Jake McCabe, Connor Murphy on a PK. You could set up Jake McCabe with Steph Jones when it's even strength. This is a good thing to have. Then you have young defensemen coming up like Ian Mitchell, who showed he was good last year, but had a rough part on the season. After half of the year into the league, he got sent down, but that happens with young defensemen. He was still developing. He still is. Then we also have Nick Beaudin, Wyatt Kalynuk. Kalynuk showed last year he's good. He is good offensively and good defensively. He's a smart defenseman for the team. Then you also have a defenseman the Hawks acquired when they traded away longtime defenseman and greatest defenseman in Blackhawk history, Duncan Keefe, to the Edmonton Oilers. The Hawks acquired younger brother of Steph Jones, Caleb Jones. He's could be a 7th defenseman. He could be on the last D pairing. He's that type of defenseman. He's not one of your top guys. He's not one of your bottom guys. He could move into the lineup every night or so. He's a good player. It could help him with developing into a solid defenseman. Then the Hawks also acquired, let's look into the forward lines. Tyler Johnson from the Tampa Bay Lightning, the two-time Stanley Cup Tampa Bay Lightning winner, is now with the Chicago Blackhawks. First few days of training camp when I'm filming this, he's been paired up with Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane. That is a smaller line in my opinion. A little too small of a line, but he's a good centerman who can help out where the Hawks had their issues last year at the dot. Now you have Johnson, Taves, Doc, maybe Strome. The team is good at center depth now, which is good to see. Then you have some rookies coming up, maybe Lucas Reichel, who might have his chance to break out and make it to the opening night roster. He's been proving he's played well in the rookie camp and the prospect tournament against Minnesota. He looked good. Now we'll see what he can do during the preseason. But we'll see. It's up in air. We could see him opening night. We could see him part of the season. Who knows? Reichel is a good prospect the Hawks have going for themselves. This team looks good. They honestly look like the best team on paper for the Blackhawks in a few years. Could the Hawks make the playoffs? I hope so. With this roster, they could. They are good on paper. And I think we could see a potential the Blackhawks make it back to the Stanley Cup playoffs to contend for the Stanley Cup. So, I hope that does happen. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I really do hope for a fun upcoming 2021-22 season from your Chicago Blackhawks. This team looks like it's going to be hungry and pushing for the playoffs. So, down in the comments down below, I want to hear what your thoughts are going into the 2021-22 season for your Chicago Blackhawks. And thank you for watching the broadcast. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And most of all, let's go Hawks!